If your internal experience of life feels, let's say like your brain is a computer running on dial-up, the memory is shot, you have about 30 browser tabs open.
Oh, I know this feeling.
Right. And 3 of them are playing conflicting music, and one of them is just this endless stream of existential anxiety you can't seem to close. Then this deep dive is specifically tailored for you.
That is, perhaps the most perfect description of modern distracted beta consciousness I've ever heard.
Mm.
We are constantly immersed in this high-frequency brain activity, logical thinking, stress, high alert.
All the time.
And while that's necessary for survival, it is terrible for planning, for creativity, and certainly for inner peace.
And for anyone who struggles with hyperactivity, or you're just living in this constant environment of external distraction, or battling that
Yeah.
persistent, unceasing mental chatter, the standard advice, the well-meaning but ultimately vague advice to just meditate or just relax,
It's useless.
it's often completely useless. It doesn't give them a tool.
It provides no mechanism for how to achieve that state. We're not looking for vague spirituality today. We're looking for a rigorous, step-by-step protocol. We're looking for a highly structured methodology to gain control.
Exactly. Our deep dive today is into the philosophy and practice behind the Silva Method, originally called Silva Mind Control, and its later, more globally adopted evolution, the Silva Ultramind ESP System.
And what really stands out when you look at the source material is the sheer audacity of its structure. The system fundamentally treats the mind not as some mysterious black box, but as a powerful, complex electrical circuit.
Or computer.
Or a computer,
Right.
exactly, that demands structured programming, detailed diagnostics, and disciplined maintenance. It is truly mental engineering.
Our mission today is to unpack this system as a series of highly structured, almost engineered protocols designed to give you conscious control over your own brain state, the ultimate goal. To help you move from that chaotic, high-resistance beta activity to a calm, focused, and profoundly creative alpha state.
And to be able to access that calm, highly functional state on demand. That's the key part.
On demand. And the foundational aha nugget, the core philosophy that underpins this entire method, originates from the background of its founder, José Silva.
Right. He was a self-taught parapsychologist and, crucially, an electronics repairman from Laredo, Texas.
And that background is not just trivia, it is the entire key to the system's metaphor. His foundational concept came directly from his trade, Ohm's law in electronics.
That's a brilliant analogy.
It really is. He theorized that if you reduce resistance in an electrical circuit, or in the brain, if you reduce the resistance caused by stress, anxiety, and that high-frequency beta activity, you exponentially increase the efficiency and the power of the energy flow.
The mind, just like any electrical system, operates better when the impedance is lowered. And, in modern neuroscientific terms, we could view this resistance as the flood of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline.
The stuff that just fogs everything up.
Exactly. It actively interferes with the brain's ability to form connections and store memory. Silva was, in his own way, targeting the dampening effect of chronic stress on cognitive function long before those specific terms were common.
So the core promise here then is dynamic meditation. This is not about passive observation until thoughts stop, which, can be torturous for a hyperactive mind.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about consciously functioning, actively working, learning, and programming at those lower, calmer frequencies, specifically alpha, which is 714 hertz, and theta, 47 hertz. This is the domain, according to Silva, for enhanced learning, profound problem-solving, and deep emotional control. Okay, so let's unpack the theoretical architecture. We have to start with the genesis story of José Silva in Laredo, Texas, back in 1944. How did a self-taught technician move from repairing radios to devising a system for mind mastery?
Well, it started in a shockingly practical way, specifically with his children. Silva's original intent wasn't spiritual or psychic development at all.
It was about grades.
It was about grades. He noticed that in times of stress or intense study pressure, their ability to recall information just seemed to plummet. So he sought to lower what he called the electrical impedance, the mental resistance of their brains, through structured relaxation.
So they could just remember their lessons better.
So they could recall information more effectively, thereby increasing their academic performance and, theoretically, their measured IQ.
So that Ohm's law metaphor wasn't just a nice phrase, it was the driving hypothesis from day one. Stress, worry, constant high-speed beta activity. He saw that as literal resistance that was actively hindering the neural pathways needed for learning and retention.
Precisely. You reduce that interference, and efficiency goes way up. He started by using hypnosis, which was, the main relaxation technique at the time, but he made a critical modification. He insisted that the subject remain completely conscious, alert, and independent throughout the process.
Which is the opposite of traditional hypnosis, where you sort of relinquish control.
Exactly. This new state, where they were relaxed yet consciously engaged, he eventually termed Psychorientology, the orientation of the psyche toward optimal functioning.
But this memory training, it led to a breakthrough that completely shifted his focus from mere academic performance to something much, much deeper, which became known as the Laredo paradox. Tell us about that moment.
It was revolutionary for him. Silva was in a session with one of his daughters. She was in this deeply relaxed yet alert state, just reviewing her lessons in her mind.
Okay.
And as he mentally prepared to ask her questions about the material she had just reviewed, she began answering them accurately before the words had even left his lips.
So he hadn't spoken the question out loud yet.
Not a word. He hadn't even fully formed it in his conscious mind, and that moment just changed everything. Silva interpreted this not as a coincidence or simple anticipatory logic, but as evidence that this relaxed state, the alpha state, was enabling the mind to function outside the normal constraints of physical sensory input.
He thought it was ESP.
He concluded that alpha allowed access to abilities beyond normal sensory perception. And that's why the application of the method expanded so dramatically, moving beyond mind control, a term he eventually distanced himself from, to this broader, more complex field of psychorientology.
Okay, so for the skeptical but still very hyperactive listener, let's consider a potential non-ESP explanation for that Laredo paradox. Could extreme attentiveness, just enabled by the stopping of all that internal chatter, account for it?
Absolutely, and that's a great way to frame it. Even if we strip away the parapsychological interpretation, the practical implication remains profound. When the mind is deeply relaxed and focused in alpha, the capacity for attentiveness and pattern recognition is exponentially higher.
So his daughter's mind, unburdened by stress and distraction, could perhaps perceive subtle nonverbal cues.
Exactly. Minute changes in her father's breathing, or even the slight tightening of his facial muscles that accompany the formation of the question. In either case, whether it's psychic ability or extreme attentiveness, the outcome proves that the alpha state unlocks an enhanced level of perception.
That makes the engineering aspect of it even more potent. Now let's get granular on the brainwave hierarchy, because this is the operational map for the entire method. If you're listening, you need to know exactly which state you're aiming for and why.
This is the theoretical backbone. Silva categorized mental functioning based on EEG science, and understanding these frequencies is crucial for gaining control. The goal for someone struggling with focus is to understand the distinction between the chaotic state we all default to and these highly structured states that are optimal for deep work.
Okay, let's start with where most of us are right now listening to this. Beta activity.
Beta is defined as 14 to 30 plus cycles per second, or hertz. This is the high resistance state. It's your waking consciousness, logical analysis, high alert thinking, and stress.
So if you're solving a math problem, or you're having an intense argument, or just navigating rush hour traffic,
You are in high beta. It's excellent for taking physical action, reacting quickly. But in Silva's terms, it's poor for sustained creative planning, for holistic comprehension, or for deep memory encoding. For the easily distracted mind, high beta is the source of that constant, unhelpful chatter.
then we get to the sweet spot, the target zone for most of this work, alpha, which is 7 to 14 hertz.
Alpha is what he called the basic plane, or the instrumental level of the work. It's defined as relaxed alertness, the state of intuition, and profound creativity.
Think of the state you're in just before you fall asleep or just upon waking, before that internal critical voice kicks in.
Your pre-anxiety moment of the day.
Exactly. It's the optimal frequency for learning because the brain is highly receptive. Silva claimed that in this state, the critical factor of the conscious mind, that filter that rejects new information, criticizes your ideas, or challenges change, is bypassed.
So positive programming can be encoded directly into your long-term memory.
That's the claim.
That is a massive claim. Bypassing the critical filter, how would that actually manifest in daily life? Well, for the student, it means studying while in alpha. The information flows in and sticks instantly, bypassing the anxiety that usually accompanies rote memorization. For the anxious professional, it means visualizing a presentation going perfectly and having that visualization, that successful neurological pathway stick as a default reality.
Instead of it being immediately dismissed by the beta mind as just some unrealistic fantasy.
Exactly.
And below alpha, things get deeper still.
We descend into theta, which is 4 to 7 hertz. This is deep meditation, vivid, almost hallucinatory imagery, and intense emotional processing. This state is utilized for deep mental programming and what they call physical healing.
And finally, delta.
Delta, zero point 0.5 to 4 hertz, is deep restorative sleep. In the advanced Ultramind system, delta is considered the direct, passive connection to higher intelligence.
So the immediate practical goal for the beginner, especially the hyperactive beginner, is stabilizing an alpha. That 7 to 14 hertz range is the operational workspace. It's the point where you can finally stop reacting to the chaotic beta world and start consciously designing your internal and external landscape.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this stabilization ties directly into Silva's concept of the bicameral mind and achieving what he called the genius concept. Silva posited that most people are left-brained.
Meaning the left hemisphere, which handles logic, language, and physical sensory data, is dominant and operates primarily in beta.
Right. And that's why we feel constantly overwhelmed. We are reliant solely on objective data and logical analysis, which is great for solving known problems, but it's terrible for navigating unknown situations or accessing spontaneous creativity.
So the goal of the Silva method is to stabilize conscious awareness at the alpha level to integrate the right hemisphere.
Yes. The right hemisphere is seen as the seat of creativity, intuition, holistic perception, and pattern recognition. This synchronization, the simultaneous coherent utilization of both hemispheres, is what Silva defined as the genius state. It allows you to analyze data and instantly grasp the holistic pattern.
We should probably acknowledge for our listener that modern neuroscience considers the strict left brain, right brain dichotomy to be a bit of an oversimplification.
That's a crucial point. The brain is far more integrated than that. However, within the context of Silva's pedagogical framework, the dichotomy functions as a powerful, actionable metaphor.
Right.
The physical goal isn't necessarily lateralization, but the functional integration of rigid analysis, which is your beta logic, and flexible creativity, your alpha intuition. When we look at definitions of genius, someone who utilizes more of their available cognitive functions, it's about accessing those calmer, more intuitive states like alpha and theta, and then grounding them effectively in the logical functioning world of beta.
Okay, so we now move from the theoretical architecture of the mind to the true engineering, the repeatable mechanical protocol for moving from chaotic beta to calm alpha. For the listener who struggles with focus, this structure is the anti-chaos mechanism they've been looking for. This is the 3-2-1 method.
This is the absolute fundamental conditioning procedure. It is designed to rapidly descend from that high-frequency beta state to the basic alpha plane. And it relies entirely on conditioned reflexes on anchors to bypass the critical factor of the conscious mind and assure the body and mind that relaxation is safe and reliable.
Before the countdown even begins, there is a crucial, often overlooked physiological step that Silva emphasizes, the eye position trigger.
Yes, this is so important. Practitioners are instructed to close their eyes and, while they're closed, direct their gaze slightly upward, about 20 degrees above the horizon. This is not just a mental visualization.
You're physically moving your eyeballs.
You are. Silva claimed that this precise oculomotor activity triggers a physiological reflex, a microsignal to the nervous system that actively encourages the production of alpha wave activity. It's the ultimate physiological shortcut that kickstarts the entire process, overriding the beta state's default settings.
Okay, with the eyes closed and the gaze set, we start the countdown protocol, which is a sequence of deepening levels using visualization and subvocalization.
Right. Level 3 is physical relaxation. The practitioner mentally repeats and visualizes the number 3 times. This visualization is instantly associated with total physical release.
And then the body scan.
Then they perform a precise body scan, consciously commanding relaxation from the scalp and forehead down to the face, the jaw, the throat, and ultimately releasing tension from the shoulders, chest, and down to the toes.
You know, this physical scan is so incredibly important for our anxious or hyperactive audience. That constant anxiety or focus deficit often manifests as extreme physical tension. A clenched jaw, tight shoulders, shallow breathing.
Absolutely.
So identifying and consciously relaxing those physical resistance points is the absolute first step to convincing your mind it is safe to slow down and enter alpha.
If the body remains tense, the mind registers danger and stays in high beta. Simple as that. So following the successful physical release in level 3, we move to level 2. Mental relaxation.
Okay.
The practitioner repeats and visualizes the number 2 3 times. The goal here is to achieve mental stillness by engaging the right brain.
How do you do that, though? How do you achieve mental stillness when your mind is naturally racing a mile a minute?
By using passive, tranquil scenes. The practitioner visualizes serene, static images. A quiet beach, a misty forest, a calm, moonlit lake, to quiet the internal dialogue and gently separate the mind from environmental stressors. The key is that the visualization has to be passive.
You're just observing, not doing.
Exactly. You're observing, not doing. This reduces the analytical beta chatter. And finally, you get to the destination. Level 1.
The workspace.
Visualize 1 3 times. This is the entry into the basic plane level, the alpha state. And we must stress again, level 1 is not a passive state of sleepiness or zoning out. It is the alert workspace for active programming, enhanced learning, and dynamic meditation. You are relaxed, calm, and acutely focused, ready to begin deep, structured work.
But the journey from beta to alpha requires more than just a quick relaxation session, particularly for minds that naturally prefer to race. This is where the rigorous, almost military-grade 40-day conditioning schedule comes in.
Right. And this is the core mechanism designed to permanently establish a reliable alpha pathway.
It sounds pretty intense.
It is. And it's highly structured, deeply disciplined, and by design, incredibly monotonous and tedious. And that's the strategic genius behind it. It is what we call a boredom technique. The constant monotonous counting is specifically designed to bypass, then exhaust, the analytical, constantly racing left brain, forcing it to surrender control. It establishes an automatic conditioned path to alpha that no longer requires mental effort.
Let's walk through the full schedule because the progression really highlights the level of psychological engineering involved here. You are training the mind for endurance, not just a quick break.
Exactly. The initial commitment requires the beginner to practice immediately upon waking, when the mind is closest to alpha anyway, for 40 consecutive days. So mornings 1 through 10, you count backwards slowly, deeply, and visualizing from 100 to 1.
100? That's a lot.
It is. This establishes the longest possible route and maximizes the boredom effect on that analytical mind. Then, mornings 11 through 20, you count backward from 50 to 1. The pathway is being reinforced, so the distance is cut in half.
Okay, that's more manageable.
Then mornings 21 through 30, count backward from 25 to 1. Further refinement and speed. And finally, mornings 31 through 40, count backward from 10 to 1. The entry is now becoming rapid and automatic.
So by the time you complete this commitment, the mind is conditioned to respond to the trigger word 1 almost instantly.
That's the goal. The maintenance level then becomes a rapid, automatic 5 to 1 entry. This rigorous training assures the subconscious that this specific lower frequency state is instantly accessible, reliable, and fundamentally safe. Consistency defeats mental chaos. For a mind that struggles with focus, this rigid structure is often the paradoxical key to freedom.
Once the practitioner is in alpha at level 1, they need a place to conduct their internal work. That's where the next piece of equipment is deployed, the mental screen.
The mental screen is the primary workspace for visualization. It is a projected area resembling a high-definition movie screen, which the practitioner mentally places approximately 6 feet in front of their closed eyes.
Okay, why the instruction to project it 6 feet in front? Why not just visualize the images inside your head? That seems more intuitive.
That's a great question, and the instruction to externalize the thought form is crucial for objective control. If you visualize the image inside your head, it often remains connected to your beta mind's self-criticism and internal chaos.
I see.
By projecting it onto the screen 6 feet away, it allows you to separate the observer from the visualization. You can manipulate the imagery objectively, treating the thought form like a blueprint or a projection, free from immediate reflexive self-criticism. It simulates reality before physical manifestation.
It's turning visualization into controlled, conscious editing rather than just passive daydreaming.
Precisely. It gives the mind a clear, structured focal point that is removed from the internal turmoil that often plagues high beta thinking. You're telling the creative right side of your brain, here is your canvas, and it is external to your anxiety.
And finally, the controlled exit. This sounds like an afterthought, but you mentioned earlier that ignoring this step can lead to alpha lag or grogginess, which no one wants.
It is absolutely critical for functional use in the waking world. You can't afford to be groggy when you return to high beta tasks. So the practitioner executes a programmed return to beta by counting slowly from 1 to 5, accompanied by specific predetermined affirmations.
And what are those affirmations?
They are very powerful and health-oriented. As you count, you say, I am going to count from 1 to 5. At the count of 5, I will open my eyes, be wide awake, feeling fine and in perfect health, better than before.
Better than before. I like that.
The inclusion of better than before programs continuous improvement. This ensures you transition back to high-functioning beta instantly, without the usual inertia of deep relaxation.
Okay, so we've learned how to spend a structured, disciplined 15 minutes in alpha, but, life happens in beta. What happens when you're suddenly ambushed by stress in a high-stakes meeting, or you hit a mental block during an exam? You can't just close your eyes and count 10 to 1 in public.
No, you can't.
And this is where the genius of the Silva method really shines for the distracted or overwhelmed listener. The rapid neurolinguistic anchoring systems.
This is the instant access key, the three fingers technique. It is the absolute core tool for transferring that conditioned alpha response into a high-stress beta environment, bypassing the need for the lengthy countdown entirely.
It's like a classic conditioning, right? Like Pavlov's bell, but
Yeah.
applied to a physiological state of mind. So how is this anchor established during the training phase?
It requires deep intentional programming. While the practitioner is deep in the alpha state at level 1 during a training session, they physically join the tips of their thumb, index, and middle fingers together on either hand. And while holding this gesture, they mentally affirm, repeatedly, whenever I join my fingers together like this, I will instantly reach this level of mind alpha to accomplish whatever I desire.
So what happens later when the practitioner is faced with that stressful situation, the presentation, the sudden memory block, or just that overwhelming feeling of distraction?
The physical gesture triggers the conditioned response. The simple act of forming the gesture, even discreetly under a table, instantly lowers the brainwave frequency to alpha. It grants immediate functional access to that calm, intuitive, whole brain state, what they call alpha intuition, while you're still actively functioning and engaging in the beta world.
Wow.
This is invaluable for rapid recall, instant creativity, or just immediate calm amidst chaos.
It's a cognitive cheat code. It allows the mind to stabilize its processing speed without physically stopping the action.
Exactly. It's high-performance psychology, creating a conditioned neural shortcut so that relaxation and focus are automatic, not an effortful decision.
Let's move to structured problem resolution using visualization on the mental screen. We mentioned the three scenes technique, which is highly structured, transforming a current negative reality into a positive future outcome using specific spatial markers.
And the spatial positioning is key because the subconscious doesn't just process images. It interprets space and direction as time. The protocol is highly specific, almost like shooting a short film with 3 precise acts.
Okay, so scene 1 is the problem. You project the current problematic situation vividly onto the mental screen. You include the associated negative emotions. You acknowledge the struggle, the pain, or the difficulty of the situation.
And then, crucially, this scene is then mentally moved off the screen to the right, which the subconscious interprets as sending it into the past, as a finished event.
It's done. Okay, then comes scene 2, the action process.
This scene is placed directly in the center of the screen. Here you visualize the specific, immediate step or symbolic action required to solve the problem. This scene is framed in bright green, signifying movement, healing, and positive momentum. And Silva really emphasizes the baby step concept here.
Right.
For the overwhelmed mind, you don't need to visualize the entire roadmap, just the immediate next action.
This is revolutionary for the overwhelmed listener because it replaces that crippling analysis trying to solve the whole thing in beta with simple, immediate action.
And finally, the most important phase. Scene 3, the outcome. This is the desired result, located directly in front or slightly to the left of the center, representing the immediate future.
And you have to feel it.
You must.
Yeah.
You must not just visualize the outcome, you must feel the resulting emotions, the relief, the joy, the profound gratitude, as if the event has already successfully occurred. This emotional charging is the active programming phase.
That emotional charge is the energy that drives the manifestation. I remember the powerful anecdote of the former Coke addict who used this visualization structure. Can you tell us about that?
It's a perfect illustration of how effective the emotional programming is. This individual had a crippling 3-liter per day Coke habit. In his scene 1, he didn't just visualize a can of Coke, he exaggerated the pain.
How so?
He visualized his body as sluggish, disgusting, and vibrating with this negative energy from the sugar, creating a massive mental aversion and a burning desire for change.
So he maximized the cost of the problem in scene 1 to fuel the solution in scene 3.
Exactly. He made the problem unbearable in his mind. Then, in scene 3, he programmed himself to prefer water, feeling the emotions of clarity, vibrant health, and sharp focus. He eliminated the 3-liter per day habit in 2 weeks.
Wow.
The mind, programmed at alpha, accepts the new reality as fact. Another famous story is the Canadian tennis player Bianca Andreescu. She was documented using the three scenes technique to visualize winning the U.S. Open against Serena Williams.
Which was a monumental feat she achieved at just 16 years old.
Right. She had primed her neural pathways for that exact success long before she ever stepped onto the court.
That is cognitive behavioral rehearsal taken to the deepest possible level. Now, let's pivot to mental hygiene. What happens when the mind starts running those ubiquitous negative scripts that are so common in distracted individuals? I'm not good enough, I'm always late, I'll never finish this.
This is where the simple but powerful technique of mental housekeeping comes in, the cancel method. Negative self-programming consists of negative words and negative mental pictures repeated over time, constantly encoding failure.
So when you catch yourself using negative language or those negative mental images, that automatic self-talk, what is the immediate protocol?
You must immediately say, mentally or verbally, cancel. It's an intentional, conscious interruption. It's like hitting delete on the mental computer program. The interruption is non-negotiable, and it arrests the neural loop before it can encode further.
And once the negative program is canceled, you can't just leave a vacuum there.
You can't. You must instantly replace it with a positive affirmation. The sources specifically mention using the phrase better and better at every opportunity as a verbal compass to maintain a positive, alpha-oriented trajectory. For example, instead of thinking, I'm going to ruin this meeting, you say, cancel. I am getting better and better at presentations.
It trains the mind to default to improvement.
Exactly.
Okay, finally in this section, let's look at the glass of water technique. This is fascinating because it explicitly bridges conscious alpha work with the deep processing power of the subconscious during sleep.
This is designed to acquire information or solutions from the subconscious, often accessing the theta and delta states where that critical factor is completely off. The procedure is deliberately ritualistic to signal to the subconscious mind that this task is a priority.
Walk us through the ritual.
Before bed, you fill a clear glass with water. You enter a shallow alpha state. Closing your eyes, turning the gaze slightly upward, that alpha trigger we talked about. You drink approximately half the water. And while drinking, you mentally affirm the intent, speaking to your inner self. This is all I need to do to find the solution to the problem I have in mind.
You're priming the subconscious with the half-empty glass.
Yes. You place the half-full glass on your bedside table and go to sleep, trusting the subconscious to process this complex request during the deep sleep cycles of delta and theta. Upon waking, you drink the remaining water, repeating the affirmation.
And the solution is expected to arrive how?
Within 24 hours, typically. It might be via a dream, a sudden flash of intuition during the day, or a synchronistic encounter that provides the exact information you needed.
As the mind becomes conditioned and the alpha state is stabilized through daily practice, the Silva Method introduces a significant evolution in its toolkit, a highly sophisticated interactive visualization exercise for complex problem-solving and self-healing known as the mental laboratory.
The laboratory represents the apex of mental engineering in the system. It's an internal space the student visualizes, organizes, and customizes entirely at the alpha or theta level. The premise is intuitive. Just as you get more work done efficiently in the physical world when your office is organized.
Complex mental work requires an organized subjective workspace.
Exactly.
It's more than just an imaginary room, though. It has mandatory specialized equipment, right?
Absolutely. The environment must be visualized as a secure, specific location, often underground or in a remote, private structure, symbolizing its separation from the chaotic beta world. It must be equipped with a desk, a special chair with controls on the armrest.
Symbolizing the practitioner's total control over their state and environment.
Yes, and a giant viewing screen for viewing data past, present, and even future possibilities.
And the library of information is immense.
It is. There is a clock, a perpetual calendar, and filing cabinets, which magically contain the complete records of every person the student has ever met or will meet. This imaginative visualization grants the practitioner a sense of total informational access, boosting confidence that the answer is always available somewhere.
But the truly unique feature, the part that elevates this from a simple visualization to an advanced interactive system, is the introduction of the inner counselors.
Right. The practitioner is instructed to invite 2 permanent inner guides, one male and one female. These figures are not random. They're often based on historical figures, great thinkers, religious icons, or simply personal archetypes representing pure wisdom and unconditional support.
I find the origin story of the counselors fascinating. José Silva didn't originally include them in the system, correct?
No, he didn't.
Mm.
They were introduced as a functional necessity. Silva realized the need for advisors when his young daughter Margarita became frightened during an early session. She was visualizing the big, intense eyes of a sick woman she was trying to help.
And it scared her.
It did. The counselors were initially created as a comforting, protective presence and guide to provide emotional stability during intense mental work. But their psychological function goes much deeper than just comfort.
How so?
They function very similarly to the Gestalt method of dialogue. They allow the user to access intuitive data or profound wisdom that they already possess, which the critical beta logic filter usually blocks or dismisses as self-doubt. You don't create the counselors to do the work for you, you engage with them to work through you.
So they serve as objective conduits for accessing your own unlimited internal intelligence and intuition.
That's the idea.
So once the laboratory is established, it's used for complex problem solving, like casework and mental scanning, especially regarding health detection and correction for other people.
Right. The protocol is structured and often involves a collaboration with a Silva instructor. The practitioner is given a case, typically the name, age, and location of an ill person. They enter the laboratory, greet their counselors, and bring the person's image onto the mental screen.
And the scanning process itself.
It involves visualizing the person's body from head to toe, actively looking for signs of pathology, which are intuitively perceived as dark spots or shadows. The correction then involves transforming the image, visualizing cleaning the affected area with pure white light or repairing it with imaginary specialized tools available in the lab.
And the system requires verification of the results, which is a key element of the training, isn't it?
Absolutely. The instructor confirms the actual medical condition to the student. This confirmation process is essential to train the student to distinguish between mere fantasy or wishful thinking and genuine intuitive data or mental sensing. This rigorous feedback loop hones the mental senses and validates the effectiveness of the alpha-level work.
Finally, let's detail the physiological control protocols. These are highly practical, immediate tools for the listener who struggles with an autonomic nervous system that is perpetually running hot, leading to insomnia, chronic anxiety, or pain.
The system claims to offer conscious, voluntary control over autonomic functions previously thought to be beyond our conscious reach. For sleep control, for curing insomnia, the practitioner leverages the conditioning they already built.
This sounds like another example of a boredom technique, similar to the initial 40-day countdown designed to defeat the busy beta mind.
It's precisely that. The practitioner enters alpha, level 1, and visualizes a large chalkboard or whiteboard. They then slowly, tediously, and deliberately erase numbers, counting backward from 100 to 1 inside a drawn circle, repeating the affirmation deeper with each count.
And the mind just gives up.
The monotonous repetition bores and exhausts the analytical left brain, forcing the focus onto internal imagery, thereby facilitating a non-anxious slide from alpha into the deep theta and delta sleep.
Yeah.
The mind surrenders to the boring task.
And for pain management, they teach something called glove anesthesia.
This is a powerful visualization and transfer technique. While in alpha, the practitioner vividly visualizes one hand plunged deep into a bucket of freezing ice water, focusing intensely on imagining the sensation of intense cold, pressure, and resulting numbness.
You really have to feel it.
You do. Once this anesthesia feels real and localized in the visualized hand, they mentally transfer the numb sensation, the anesthetic glove, over the painful part of the body, be it a chronic headache, a burn, or an injury, to consciously block or dampen the beta pain signals.
That's a pure example of the mind overriding the body's standard alarm system. And for tension headaches or migraines, which are incredibly common among hyperactive individuals.
The approach is pure visualization and replacement. You enter alpha, locate the tension visualized as a knot, a dark cloud, or a pulsing light on your mental screen. You then transform that image by seeing it dissipate or being washed away by brilliant white light. You affirm, "My head feels clear, cool, and comfortable," repeatedly, before performing the controlled exit back to beta.
And the mind accepts the visualized replacement.
That is the principle.
The Silva method was a constantly evolving system. Shortly before his death in 1999, José Silva developed the Ultramind ESP System, which marked a pretty significant shift in the philosophy and the goals of the work.
It really did. The original Silva method, often called the Basic Lecture Series, or BLS, focused heavily on self-empowerment and personal manifestation. It was the getting what you want approach. Ultramind was conceived because Silva felt the original course had become, well, too materialistic.
A bit too focused on getting a better parking spot.
Something like that. The later system shifted the focus decisively toward divine guidance, service to others, and accessing the deeper theta and delta states. It was the doing what higher intelligence wants approach.
It was an attempt to reorient the student's focus from personal gain to universal service. And the flagship technique of this Ultramind evolution is the mental video technique.
Right. This technique is designed specifically to solve complex problems by communicating them directly to higher intelligence. It involves a structured protocol utilizing both a daytime beta phase and a nighttime alpha delta phase.
So in the daytime, in your normal beta state, you capture the problem.
Yes. You visualize the problem as a complete, detailed movie. You then review this problem video with your eyes closed to deepen the impression. This ensures the analytical mind has fully cataloged the situation.
And the nighttime phase.
Before going to sleep, you enter alpha, replay the problem video one more time, and then immediately create a new video depicting the solution, a step-by-step unfolding of the ideal resolved outcome.
And then you hand it off.
You then mentally hand over both videos to higher intelligence or your subconscious before immediately going to sleep. Silva believed the delta state, deep unconscious sleep, is the frequency where this request is actively processed and the solution is transmitted back to you.
Okay, now let's provide some critical context. The claims of the Silva method, especially those involving ESP and remote correction, are certainly bold, and they have faced significant scientific scrutiny over the decades.
Absolutely. The method exists in a very controversial space. Proponents cite significant evidence, documented EEG studies, suggesting that Silva graduates can voluntarily generate and maintain those highly efficient alpha rhythms while performing active cognitive tasks.
Activities that typically require high beta energy.
Exactly. They point to parallels with biofeedback, demonstrating that individuals can gain voluntary control over physiological functions previously considered autonomous. And, of course, they cite the thousands of self-reported successes regarding improved concentration, reduced anxiety, better academic performance, and subjective health improvements.
However, the mainstream scientific community, spearheaded by prominent skeptics like James Randi, has labeled the paranormal claims that ESP, remote viewing, instant healing as pseudoscience.
Yes. Randi famously attributed all the reported benefits entirely to the well-documented effects of the placebo response and basic deep relaxation techniques.
The core issue for skeptics really boils down to correlation versus causation. While it might be proven that Silva students can produce alpha waves on demand, that fact alone doesn't validate the metaphysical claims of altering physical reality at a distance or clairvoyant prediction.
Right. And critics rightly note that the underlying left-brain-right brain split is a neurological oversimplification. But if we pivot and view the entire method through a purely modern psychological and behavioral lens, its legitimacy as a practical tool for the distracted mind is undeniable. It becomes a highly structured form of cognitive behavioral rehearsal, or CBR.
Meaning that by vividly imagining a successful outcome, you are essentially desensitizing yourself to the inherent anxiety of the beta world and powerfully priming those specific neural pathways for success, which is standard, accepted practice in fields like sports psychology and peak performance.
Exactly. And we return to the tools. The three fingers technique, which allows instantaneous access to alpha, is a textbook example of sophisticated anchoring, a physical shortcut to a deeply conditioned physiological and mental state. Whether you call it alpha access or just deep relaxation combined with focused intention, the ability to instantly trigger calm and focus in a chaotic environment is an undeniably powerful cognitive hack for someone dealing with distraction or hyperactivity.
So what does this all mean for the learner, the person who is constantly busy, constantly distracted, and desperately seeking a functional off switch for their racing mind?
I think the key is the integration of a waking alpha state into daily life. That state of flow where intuition and profound calm are accessible even when you are actively functioning in beta. The Silva method provides a rigid, highly specific schedule, which paradoxically is precisely what an unregulated, distracted mind needs to gain control. Structure provides agency.
Let's summarize the actionable, practical routine for integrating these powerful tools.
Okay. In the morning, the structured routine is paramount. Upon waking, perform the 3-2-1 countdown, or the faster 10-1 count if you're conditioned. Use your time at alpha to review your most important goals on the mental screen and program your day positively, setting intentions for smooth flow and being highly focused.
And midday is all about stress management in the beta world.
This is your chance to use the three fingers technique for instant calm or rapid information recall during meetings, presentations, or sudden high-pressure situations. If a major wave of stress or distraction hits, take 5 minutes, using the 5-to-1 rapid entry to dissolve that cortisol buildup before it can derail your day.
And in the evening?
In the evening, before sleep, utilize the glass of water technique for any complex problem that requires an inspired solution, or employ the mental video technique to hand over pressing worries, thereby ensuring deep, restorative delta sleep, free of that racing beta chatter.
The system also provides a strategic application for difficult decision-making, which is often paralyzed by beta overanalysis.
Yes, you enter alpha, you stabilize, and you visualize taking one course of action path. A, noticing the accompanying feeling, whether it's one of heaviness, friction, or lightness. Then you immediately visualize taking path B, noting the comparative feeling. The premise is that the gut feeling, or what Silva calls clairsentience, clear sensing, is amplified and clarified in alpha,
Making the correct choice immediately obvious.
and allowing you to utilize your intuition as a reliable, logical guide.
So what is the final synthesis here? What's the big takeaway?
I think the system's core strength and its ultimate relevance for the modern distracted listener is structure and agency. Whether you choose to view the mental screen as a path to extrasensory perception or simply the most powerful cognitive hack ever devised for structured visualization and focus, the system provides a comprehensive, actionable user manual that demystifies mental mastery.
The ultimate message is empowering. We are not passive victims of our thoughts, our distractions, or our high-speed anxiety. We are their architects. Through disciplined, structured, and repeatable protocols that are uniquely useful for minds that struggle to maintain focus or calm, the practitioner gains complete conscious agency over their internal landscape.
And if you've been listening today, you've heard how the Silva method emphasizes visual and associative memory at the alpha level. Consider this final thought. Conventional rote learning, which is strictly a high-effort beta activity, is notoriously slow and inefficient. Studies within the Silva community compared conventional left brain memorization of a 10-item list, which took about 10 minutes,
Okay.
versus visualization and associative techniques practiced in alpha, which took about 1 minute.
That's a huge difference. Here's a provocative final thought for you to explore. If the mind is naturally wired to remember things visually and associatively, and if conventional rote learning is strictly taxing beta activity, what profound fundamental power is truly unlocked and what massive time savings are achieved when we stop fighting the mind's natural right brain visual processor and instead feed it structured images, symbols, and stories. The sheer speed difference suggests that our everyday approach to learning and problem solving is fundamentally and dramatically inefficient.